Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming today to today's AMA. Go ahead and let me know in one of the chats if you can hear me okay. Just want to make sure my audio is working. Any of the chats will do. General chat, Zeta chat, Prime chat, any of them. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Sounds good. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you. Node catchers, good to see you in here. Hope you're doing well. Haven't talked to you in a while. Hope you're feeling better. I think you were sick. A lot of people are sick this time of the year. We're hunkering down with the baby ourselves because, I was never one of those big germaphobes, but when you have a new baby who has a weakened immune system, you are taking a lot of precautions. So, we're going to have some short announcements. Going to have Nylock on from Thorfi. I don't think he's in here yet. Just to discuss the OTC mechanism a little bit. Then we'll go into some of the submitted questions you guys posted in the AMA questions channel. I don't know if I'll get to all of them, but I'll get to some of them as well. And this will, of course, be recorded for anybody who can't make it live. I noticed that the markets were moving up a little bit today. It looks like it was kind of a little speculation because the Supply Management Institute showed a slower demand and lower input for prices for manufacturers. So that gave investors expectations that the Fed might, reduce interest rates in the future, and that might cause the US dollar to go down. So that caused crypto to go up. Of course, I think we're still getting the Fed Reserve minutes today. So we'll actually see. I mean, we'll find out if they really pivot. But that was, I think, what was behind the move up in the markets today. Short-lived, but that's as pumps typically are. We're just going sideways. I expect us to go sideways for a while. We'll see if the Fed continues to follow through with their cuts or hikes or any of that stuff. I'm actually going to do something really quickly here. You might hear me cut out. Just give me one moment. I apologize. Okay, there we go. Just needed to change a setting on my side. So, Nylock's in here. How you doing, buddy? I'll invite you up here in just a moment. Just going to go through some quick announcements real quick. It's been a busy year already, 4 days in. We've got the OTC system live. Big thanks to Thorfi. Super easy to work with our developers and their developers, smart guys. Really appreciate, working with us and helping us brand that and getting it up in quick order. We've already had $115,000 transacted through the OTC mechanism. That was as of 4 hours ago. So that data is not even up to date. It's likely higher than that. Thank you to Ray for his Dune analytics. He does a wonderful job. If you have not seen that, please check it out in the stats channel or Discord. So as of 4 hours ago, $115,000 already transacted through the OTC mechanism. Go ahead and consider using that more, guys. And I know some people ask, why have an OTC? What's the purpose of an OTC? There are volatility metrics on any decentralized exchange that you use, right? You buy too much, you sell too much, price moves up or down, and there's always going to be volatility, right? You reduce that volatility, especially if we're talking larger amounts, through the OTC mechanism. I know it takes a little bit of time for those transactions to go through. It doesn't take that much time, though, really, if you think about it. I actually had my first OTC go through. It took a few hours, but then again, if you are looking to sell and take the cash and put it to your bank anyway, you're looking at a couple of days, either way, for that to clear. So unless you intend to use it right away for something, it does take a little bit of time anyway. So I really don't think it's a big deal. And I would just encourage you guys to use that more often. It's a great system, and we're really happy to have partnered with Thorfi to get that going. And of course, Lakes, we were able to open that about a day or so early. And there was a little bit of a special surprise of a rollover in there. Some of you didn't know about. We've already had almost $94,000 deposited. And those are obviously, as you know, monthly $500,000 buybacks. There's a sunk cost, so there's a little bit of a give and take. But the give and take in this sense versus pools is that, in pools, you have to claim your tokens, right? Or buy tokens on the open market. Pools are limited in quantity and availability. So you have to be available when they are, right? So you deposit in. And so that's kind of the side of it that's a little bit of the give, right? That they're not always available. And you have to pay claim fees to get your tokens or buy tokens, right? So take is that you have control over your principal 84 days later. And of course, you can choose when you want to withdraw, how often you want to compound your profits, and so on. The lakes, now you have a sunk cost, yes, but you have a rollover with 0 claim fees. That's a big deal because, as you get up there in zone count, claim fees can be expensive, right? Understandably so. So this, I've been kind of myself, I was joking in the Discord. I failed to make my lake video yesterday because I was rolling over so often. I forgot I needed at least $100 to make the video. So I'm going to be doing that right after this AMA. I'll go and make the lake video, but that's only a little over 2 days of $94,000 deposited. So that's really cool. And the lake will continue to go until it's filled. It's almost 94 grand at the moment, 2 days. By the end of today, you should be receiving your blue chip withdrawal and airdrop. As you know, we just discontinued the blue chip service just because it was obvious the attention and the excitement was around the high frequency trading fund, understandably so. So we just decided, hey, instead of allocating profits to the blue chip, why don't we just forego it and, focus more on the HFT? That's kind of the 80-20 approach. So you should be receiving all of those liquidations in your wallet by the end of today. We also have the HFT audit in our hands. It's going through the certification process at the moment. So we should be able to have that posted soon. I do appreciate your patience with that. And I think as we go along, by the way, these processes will be a little bit faster over time. It's just that we're doing this for the first time. So do appreciate that. And there will also be a quarterly summary coming this month for the Xeta Capital Fund. If you recall, we were doing monthly summaries. I think the last one was back in September. And I'd mentioned, hey, we've been live for a couple months now, but we're going to start switching to quarterly summaries. It's a little more in line with what you see a lot of typical companies and businesses do to provide quarterly reports. So that should be out sometime this month. Now, the monthly summaries did take, a week or two. We are doing a quarterly, so this is more data to have to go through. So just to, kind of bear with us, but we should have that out this month as well. Now, we do have a lot of submitted questions, and I am going to get to those. But first, I want to invite Nylock to come up and talk. You should see that invite now.
Hello, Showtime. How are you guys doing today?
Doing wonderful. How are you guys doing over at ThorFi?
Oh, we're doing well. We just went through our major migration process just as we were onboarding Xeta into our OTC integration. It's been a little bit of a hectic new year, just as it's been for you guys. We've made a lot of progress, and we've got a lot more to go.
Yeah, so we're 4 days into the new year, and I feel like it's already been 4 weeks. That's how it works in crypto, I guess. Right?
It moves way too fast. I love it how we also plan for everything to happen right at the beginning of the new year, right?
I don't know how that happens. It just seems to work that way sometimes. In business and in personal life, it seems to work that way too, as well. Hey, it is very exciting to be on your AMA last week. Really appreciate you having us on, and wanted to return the favor and just talk a little bit about. I guess you guys are ThorFi. You're not Thor, just Thor anymore. I know you've done a little rebranding.
We've migrated significantly past all of the passive income node protocols. We're looking to get beyond that and really develop an ecosystem of value surrounding a singular reward token, utilizing NFTs as our primary passive income generation mechanism.
Yeah, and I know you guys are implementing more utility and NFTs, and there's just a lot going on. I remember when I was on your AMA, I haven't followed everything you guys were doing, but just listening to the questions, I'm like, hey, you guys have a lot of stuff going on. Could you get
well, just like you guys, man? I think it's definitely our responsibility in this industry to be the ones that are innovating and evolving. And that's the reason I'm so happy to be, beside you right now, because I've been watching Xeta for a very long time. You and I have had a relationship for, way before Xeta and way before Thor. And I just want to say it's a complete privilege to be building in a market with industry peers such as Xeta.
Hey, thank you. And I know that, it's one of those things, and I've been saying this for the last year or so. I've been telling people, token price does not dictate the long-term success of a business, right? It is a token. It is a volatile asset. It is a depreciating asset. And it is something that when you have decentralized finance, the project can be somewhat in control of the token, but ultimately the community is in control of the token. At the end of the day. And I know that, some projects, will catch flack for token price. At the end of the day, though, there's a lot of projects that I've seen come and go, as you have, right? They've just picked up their belongings and went home. You guys have not picked up your ball and went home. You've continued innovating and building, and I think that says something to the fact that you're, here to stay.
Well, I thank you, brother. I mean, look, it's been a year for us of major ups and major downs. Almost being victims of our own success when it comes down to emissions. And as node counts start to scale up over the course of a year, emissions obviously scale at almost a disproportional rate. But with us coming into a much more of our sustainability era and the evolution of our ecosystem, focusing primarily on upcoming revenue generation projects that we've been working on and are releasing. Actually, Capsule, one of our NFT marketplaces, is one of the first things that's going to be coming out in the next 14 days or so. I'm very excited about that. It's really nice to start off a new year with a new era and a new evolution of our ecosystem, new evolution into sustainability. And I think that's something that everybody in the DeFi scene absolutely is hungry for, given the current global market conditions that we're all operating within.
Yeah, there's very few projects that are still in the DeFi space, especially in this market. And I know we're two of maybe a very small handful that are still actually, building, innovating, doing things. I want to talk about absolutely. I want to talk about the OTC mechanism for a minute. So we've transacted over 115,000. That's as of 4 hours. Probably higher by now.
Huge congratulations. Yeah, that's amazing. Huge congratulations.
And, we were impressed when you guys released seeing the volume going through there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you guys have had over $1 million transacted through your OTC up to this point. Something in that realm?
We're over $500,000 now. We're about 1.3 million Thor tokens transacted.
Got it. Thor tokens. Got it. So yeah, that was quickly adopted by you guys. And, our community loves it. And it's simple, it's sleek. There's obviously, our community has said, hey, they should, do this and this and this. I know you guys have gotten some suggestions, but ultimately, we wanted to partner because it was built, it was ready. And when you were offering as a service, it's like, well, that seems like something that would bring a lot of value to our community. And so far it has.
Look, from our perspective, it's a total no-brainer. We originally built our OTC system to really help facilitate price action for Thor. As we were dealing with, a massive amount of increasing emissions on a monthly basis. We've been working our butts off to find how many different ways that we can not only offer utility and independent buy pressure of our token, but also simultaneously take a look at the tokens that are entering our market and how we can have those tokens sold without necessarily reflecting on our price action or on DEX volumes. And so that's really the pain point that we saw, and that's the reason we created this tool. It wasn't until after creation, seeing the reception by our community when we brought it in, that we went, wow, this seems to be something that would be, hugely valuable to really any project that's, especially currently operating in the bear market that we're in. It makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of value, and having a, pre-built system for incoming projects, I think is a huge value add that we're more than happy to provide to other projects over at Thorfi.
So explain that. I have my own way of explaining this, but I want to hear it from yourself. And, it might be beneficial for our audience to hear it from a different perspective as well. Why would someone want to use the OTC when they could just go onto DEX right now and sell or buy a whole bunch of tokens? What benefit does it really provide that person?
I think everybody that's within the DeFi scene has had long enough time in this market to understand that there's a real balance between the individual profit motive and the protocol success motive. I think it's in everyone's best interest within the XETA community to have ongoing upwards mobility of the price action, have extremely healthy price action, and not necessarily be the ones that are contributing towards negative price action. So essentially, this is a very simple peer-to-peer transactional service. It's essentially like your own private order book. And what that allows people to do is it allows specifically your larger holders to liquidate out of some of their tokens without adversely affecting the rest of the community and the project as a whole.
Absolutely. And we're looking at around $20,000 a day that's being transacted. And I bring that number up to the community. Isn't that something? Yeah, it was adopted right away. When our community sees an opportunity, I can see that they jump on it. I bring that number up because, if you're thinking, well, gosh, I might post these tokens, they may not sell. I'm telling you guys, the tokens are going. They're going, right? There's buyers coming in, there's sellers posting. It doesn't happen immediately like it does on a DEX. It takes a little bit of time, but you're going to get your order fulfilled at that exact price at that exact time somebody comes and buys it. And it doesn't negatively inverse the open market value, which again, that's the value. Remember that you're rolling over into lakes, that you're depositing into pools, that you're using for the utility. The higher priced on the open market, the higher value you have inside of the utility. So that's another benefit.
I would even cite one more additional value add specifically to the individuals that choose to utilize the OTC service. Just remember, guys, when you're swapping out on a Trader Joe or Radio Shack or any of the different decentralized exchanges that operate, you're trading with trading fees. The great thing about the ROTC is any fees that are associated with transactions are lower than what your DEX swaps are. So especially if you're dealing with larger volume, you're going to see increased savings just by simply utilizing that OTC offering, albeit, of course, it takes a little bit more time for those orders to be filled.
Absolutely. That's a really great point that you brought up. And I'll just say to anybody who's hesitant, just post some tokens. Just put a portion on there, get your feet wet, see how it works. And all of a sudden, you're going to log into your wallet one day and you're going to say, oh, I have USDC sitting here. Why? Oh, somebody bought my token. That's kind of cool. It works literally just like that. So anyway, let's get the volume up. We're at between 18, 20K a day. Let's get up to 25, 30, 40, 50K a day. That way,
I think
we'll see. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to interrupt you there by saying the one thing that we noticed when we introduced our OTC system is the OTC system's scale seems to increase on a daily basis. So I think, giving it a little bit more time, you're going to be, have a very easy time scaling up the volume that's going through the OTC. And, I just want to reiterate one more time, even for the people that are, going, hey, I'd like to dump my tokens, I'd like to immediately cash out. I think it's in everyone's best interest to have a protocol that has, a sustainable token price action and is there to last significantly longer. And if that means you have to wait, an hour or two to have your order fulfilled, I think that's an absolutely more than fair trade-off.
So I know somebody, I'm not going to give the person's name away, but they told me and this was several days ago. I think it was over the weekend, actually. They had sold 200 tokens before lunchtime. They woke up in the morning, they posted 100, it got sold. They're like, oh, I'm doing another 100. Literally 200 of them were sold before lunch. And they didn't even have to impact the price. So, you guys probably remember my strategic selling video. If you were to try to offload 200 tokens strategically, it'd take you some time. Matter of fact, I would argue that's more work than just posting it on the OTC. Far more work. Having to, follow buy orders and slowly get out. And, now there's more negative selling, so you have to hold off, all that kind of stuff. So the OTC is the way to go. I want to thank you again, Nylock. Do you want to leave our audience with anything before you move about your day?
Well, I just wanted to say a huge shout out to the XETA community. I've had the privilege of talking to some of your community members outside of your server, and I got to say, you have a fantastic community here. A lot of really high quality and educated people within this space, which I think everyone can realize is somewhat of a rarity in the DGen DeFi space. So I want to say big shout out to you guys, big amount of respect for that. And look, man, we're so happy that we were able to go through this integration and, provide some value towards the XETA project, and obviously, have that value provided towards ThorFi as well. We're looking forward to any other, potential opportunities that we could work together in the future.
Well, I can say that the OTC is where it began with us, but I can tell you for sure that's not where it's ending. So,
beautiful.
Absolutely. And want to thank you so much for coming on. Wish you guys the best over at ThorFi and keep us updated.
No problem. Thank you so much, Showtime. You have a fantastic rest of your AMA, my brother.
You too. Take care now.
All right, ciao.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And we are, by the way, guys, just so you know, we're working on a bot that will have its own channel that's going to notify everybody every time an OTC order is put up. So if somebody says, I want to go sell some tokens, there's going to be a bot that's going to say, hey, somebody's now listing these tokens. Thor has that actually in their Discord. And they're assisting us with getting that bot in our Discord as well. So that should be up pretty soon, actually, have an update just before I came on, but I had to run to the AMA, so I haven't had a chance to follow up. But yeah, that's coming very soon. So appreciate that and appreciate Nylock coming on. I wish Thorify the best as they go about their migration, all the stuff that they're doing. Let me go to some questions. I kind of want to keep the AMA short, tight, and sweet. Some of these AMAs can go long. I can certainly talk for 3 hours if need be, but I don't think everyone wants to listen to me talk for 3 hours. So I'm just going to hop into some questions real quick. I can't get to them all, so I'm going through them right now. Somebody's asking if the lake, the $500,000 lake, does not get filled, will more pools open as a result? I don't want to say yes for sure. It'll ultimately come down to like the money guys, to be honest with you. So if, for example, the lake, we're talking $500,000 buyback. I mean, we're what, $100,000 in 2 days. I think it's going to get filled, but theoretically, the question is, if it didn't, would more pools open as a result? I don't want to say yes for sure. I think it's likely, but I don't want to say for sure. I'm always the kind of guy, and I've kind of, been preaching this, personally myself, is I like to grab opportunities when they're in front of me, bird in the hand, worth two in the bush. And I'll tell you actually what caused that for me was going through this last, year or two. I didn't sell any of my holdings, like none, zero. I watched everything go up and I watched it come all the way back down. Never sold anything. For example, I was in, I think, almost a 30x with Theta. That was one of the ones I should have sold. I was up, V-Chain hit like 25 cents. I think I got in at like a penny. So I was like a 25x, 24x on that. And I thought, well, for sure, it's going to go from 24, 25 cents to $1. Certainly Theta is going to go to $50, $60. I mean, why would I sell at 15? That's crazy. So I kind of learned a personal lesson from that. And it's just something I want to, share with you guys, is that I like to grab opportunities when they're in front of me. What I mean by that is I've been rolling over into the lake like crazy myself. Matter of fact, I was joking in the Discord. I wanted to make a video yesterday of the lake tutorial, but I actually didn't have $100 worth to make the video because I kept rolling over and rolling over. So this is kind of a funny thing. I just, look, I'm in all the different pools. I'm in 10%. I'm in the 15%. I'm in the variable, and I'm now in the lake. When something's in front of me, I grab it. I grab onto it. Yes, there's obviously the give and take that potentially I can get into a lake, but you never know, right? So, or a pool, I meant to say, but you just never know. So to answer the question, it's possible. I would just like to encourage people, if you see an opportunity in front of you, you might consider grabbing it. But great question. I really appreciate it. So we got some questions on the pools. So, as far as like, how does it work? The performance percentage, lower tiered, things like that. This is from Russell, by the way. The first question is on performance. When does the performance percentage reset? In other words, if you are withdrawing your profits, does the actual performance go back to zero? It does not. So what it's showing you is the overall performance of that particular pool, right? So even if you pull your profits, that does not get reset because you're seeing the overall performance of that pool. So there's kind of two trains of thoughts on this. One, you could develop this from the perspective of every time you pull your profits, it's going to reset so that when you go pull your profits again, you see the new performance. That's one way of looking at it. The way we decided to do it was to just have that continue going. So even if you pull profits, the performance just keeps going up. And if you think about it, that kind of allows you to know when you've hit like 100%. Not that you need to ROI because you have control of your principal, but it gives you that metric to say, okay, over the life of this pool, this has done X, right? So that's the way it's coded right now. So he's also asking, I'm going to read some of these questions. So he says he wants to know the lower tiered HFT profit cap and compounded profit. Now, if you guys are in the AMA questions channel, you could literally read this with me if you'd like. So he says, let's assume that someone qualifies and invests $1,000 for easy math into the 10 to 24 zone tier. That is capped at 10%. Is the profit that is capped only the current month's distributions, not an actual cap? Yeah. So basically, you are capped at 10% or 15%. For example, the fund can make more than that. I'm not guaranteeing it makes anything, but I'm saying if it makes more than those caps, then yeah, it makes more than those caps. Essentially, is what happens. That goes to the Xeta Capital Fund as profit. Okay. So you are capped at those levels, and that's how that works for those tiers. Is there a way for someone to draw down or withdraw a portion of their initial? I think you're asking about the principal. No. So, I mean, look, there's two different ways of looking at this. I mean, you could withdraw any profits that you have on an ongoing basis, right? That's one way to do it. But as far as liquidation, yeah, please understand that when it comes to high frequency trading funds and things of this nature, it takes time to close positions, to pull those out, to send them to you. It's not something that can happen in like a day or even 2 or 3 or 4 days sometimes. That's why we say up to 28 days. As far as a portion of your original principal, it's not something that we intend to do as of right now. That would make it definitely a little bit more complicated, to be honest. So as of right now, it's either portion of profits, portion of the original, or nothing. You let it compound. So those are the two options as of right now. So the other question is, what if somebody had blocks that they withdrew? Doesn't that affect the overall fund? It does not. It's a very large fund. I mean, we're talking a very large fund. 1 or 2 blocks, 5 blocks, 10 blocks, 20 blocks is not going to make a dent in the overall trading volume and the size of the trades. So no, the answer is that does not like impact other people inside. And also, like, keep in mind, it's not as if a pool is like an autonomous like fund or anything like that, right? The funds are all pooled together. In other words, the XETA Capital Fund trades. It's just that you have a portion of that is allocated to the pool into obviously your individual blocks. So pulling a block or 2 or 3 or even 10 or 20 out does not impact the fund in its trading ability. So somebody's asking if there's going to be a rollover for pools like there is for lakes. That's also, I can answer that and the $100 rollover kind of at the same time. There will be. I just don't know when. I can't give you an exact when. As you can tell, the rollover function already is built. You can see that in the lakes. It's kind of a little, happy surprise there. So the function's built. The question is how to make it fair, right? Is it exactly at 100? Is there some sort of percentage that it's above the open market price? What does that look like? It's got to be something that, and I hate that word fair, by the way. I'm just gonna say, I hate the word fair, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just using that word. It's something that has to be like realistic and fair for emissions versus sellers versus people who don't want to sell, etc. Especially if zones are, become less and less expensive. It just depends, right? So there's ways to do it, but it has to be done very carefully. You can see the tech is built. It's just how does the economics and the inflation and all the other kind of stuff play into that to make sure that nothing in the system breaks. So that's kind of the long and short I have of it. But yes, there will be some form of rollover for pools at some point that will be very similar to lakes, but would potentially most likely have some sort of value attached to it that benefits you versus just selling. I don't want to give deadlines and timeframes and all that because I've already jumped the gun on that before, and I do apologize for that. Steven's asking, and I kind of already answered this, but I'll answer it again. Do we get the quarterly profit breakdown of the fund rather than just the HFT alone? We have given summaries previously, as you noticed. So we had a July is kind of a partial, so it wasn't a full. August, September, those were like monthly summary reports of how the private equity is doing. There's usually not much action in the private equity, especially in these markets. Until you decide to liquidate those. Sometimes you can do private equity sort of liquidations among other like investors before it actually goes public. So those are always possibilities. But private equities, those are hodls, like, we would say in crypto, hodl, long time hold type of positions. Not much action there. Blue chip, you might not see much during this time as well. Bonds, same thing. So the HFT is kind of where the most action is. So we've provided that on a monthly basis. You will be seeing that on a quarterly basis. So that will be like a summary breakdown of all the profit points of how all those funds performed. And again, because we had been providing those on a monthly basis, usually we were looking at about a week to 10 days to usually get those in order. Because we're doing a quarterly one now, just give us a little time and we will get that out for the quarter. And that will probably coincide right along the time with the HFT audit. I think the audit will be out much sooner than that will actually be available. So hopefully that helps. There's a question about how would the investments be used when we were ready to liquidate them. So these are the investments that were invested in prior to even the pre-sale opening. So before anybody ever came in. It's really just going to come down to what the business need is at that time, right? Because when those mature, when they are vested, what does the business need? Is it to bring on more developers? Is it to perform additional marketing? Is it to, whatever? Is it to airdrop? Is it to open more pools? All this stuff. So it just kind of depends on what the business need is at the time. So I don't want to pigeonhole how that's going to take place, but that's kind of like the long and short answer of that. So there's a question on 20% tiers for zones. There's a little confusion. So we actually coded a 20% tier, right? And I believe I said this publicly, in Discord, but we did actually create that tier that does exist from a development side, right? We were going to code it so that when and if we wanted to make it available, it was a simple, hey, now it's ready, push a button, push it out kind of thing. So around Christmas time, I don't want to say accidentally, but did kind of accidentally get pushed out. It doesn't mean that those who got into that pool aren't getting that. They are. But it wasn't like an announced thing. The answer is yes, we do plan to do it, but I don't know exactly when. Obviously, you can see it's done and ready to use because a lot of you are in that pool. I got into that not even knowing it was a 20%. It just so happened that I got into it, and then I found out it was a 20%er. And we started telling people, hey, by the way, just so you know, this was created, and this is a 20%, pool. So kind of keep in mind, ideally, the most fair way to do this is to give all of the tiers at least a pool, if not more, potentially more for the higher up, 75 plus tier, right? Just because of the emissions difference. But to create another tier means another pool for at least a minimum rollout. So right now, there are essentially 3 tiers. When you add a 4th in there, you need at least 4 pools minimum to be like on the fair side. I mean, I'm ideally more than that, but it just means that there's an additional minimum threshold that has to be rolled out each time. So there's an economic decision behind it. It's not like a coding thing because obviously you see that it's ready. But to answer the question, yes, that we plan to have it. I just don't know when as of right now. There's a question about a rollover into Lake. Jay Good AZ is asking this. He says, say you have 50 Zeta and you roll 30 into a Lake. Does that 30 come equally out of every zone you own? The answer is no. So let me explain how this works. And some of you may have figured this out when you're claiming. So we have a claim limit, obviously. So if you have, 50 zones, just as an example, and you are claiming 50, you have more than 50, but you're claiming 50, right? Technically, you should be paying, what is that, $250, right? Technically. However, you'll notice sometimes you don't. You claim 50, but you're paying, what, 125 or 75 or 80. It just depends. The reason is because you don't always have an equal amount of rewards per zone. And the reason is because if I create a zone today and 10 more next week and 10 the week after that and 10 the week after that, they all have different rewards. So they're not all going to have equal to pull from, right? So what it does is it pulls from the ones that have the most first, if that makes sense, when you're claiming, right? Well, that's exactly how it's going to work when you're rolling over. There's no difference because you can't have an equal number of rewards available for all of your zones unless you just happen to build all 50 at one time. And if you did, in that scenario, then it would probably pull equally. It just kind of like depends, right? And were some of those pre-sale or not, that's where it factors into it. But no, that's basically actually the system, especially when you're claiming. I don't know, this is actually a benefit I never even mentioned. When you're claiming, it actually attempts to save you money by claiming from the zones that have the most first. Right. And then it goes kind of like sorts it from most to least and pulls 50 from whatever it can first, if that makes sense. That's why sometimes you pay less, sometimes you pay more, etc. So when it rolls over, obviously it would just, function the exact same way. And yes, Crypto Mama, we will get an infographic on the lakes. So let me kind of explain the lakes a little bit. I know it's not like an exact question, but I just want to explain it anyway. So let me explain pools first, because if I explain pools, this might make sense. In a pool, let's say you deposit some funds. I'm not going to say the number. You deposit some funds. Pool closes. You have to wait 28 days before you can ever withdraw your first profits, right? So 28 days later, the button's available. You can withdraw your profits. Then it takes up to 28 days to receive those. You're now at 56 days, right, before you ever received your profits. Well, the lakes work very similarly, except there's two differences. One, obviously you don't have your principal, but we're talking about profits for a moment. One, you don't have to click anything. Okay, and two, you can't compound. So what happens is the first 28 days after the lake is closed, okay, day one, it's starting trade. Day 28, what are the profits, right? Okay, profits are X. The initial is Y, right? So take X and now airdrop that out. That takes up to 28 days to arrive, right? So day 56, it arrives, right? But then the next 28 days starts counting down after that. So then it's literally every 28 days after that. But there's almost like, I would explain it like this. There has to be a base that's built for a month, if that makes sense. So that way, every month after that, you get your profits. Otherwise, it'd have to be every other month, if that makes sense. So we do the every other month first, then every month after that, because that base is now built. And literally every 28 days, you can get the profits from the original. Hope that makes sense. That a little confusing. I apologize, but if you think about it in terms of pools, I brought up pools for a reason because it's literally the same time frame. The only difference is you don't control it and you don't compound when we're talking about just the profits there. I hope that makes sense. Not prepared to talk about Zeta Black right now. There's nothing to say about that right now. Somebody's asking if will we ever be able to select our risk level inside the HFT? I know that's been discussed, but I am not recalling at what level that's been discussed. I apologize. I don't know if I ever said that was actually going to be available. I think it's something that we'd like to make available at some future point, but I can't say when, how, or if that will even happen. I think that'd be kind of cool, but I don't know right now if that will be incorporated, if I'll be very honest with you. We'll have to wait and see. Somebody's asking, is there a way to pre-pledge pools to reserve a spot? Now, we have spoken about this internally. Somebody, and I apologize, somebody had brought this up as a suggestion. Is there some way to almost reserve your spot in advance of the pool coming? You could do this. I'll be honest, it would be actually a very similar system as is right now. Well, sort of. So let me explain. So pools open, everybody's like, it's like literally, I describe it like Black Friday, back when people didn't shop online. I think they still do this. But back when, definitely before Amazon and some of the e-commerce companies were big, people used to go and camp in front of the stores. I saw my parents do this once. Everybody rushes in, they buy stuff, climbing over on top of each other. I don't know, punching each other, killing each other sometimes. That's kind of how I describe how the pools sort of work. Pools are open, everybody's a mad rush to get in. And then those who don't get in, they get kind of frustrated. So the idea that's being presented is, what if there was like a way to deposit your tokens into like a reservation, so that when the pool's open, it just gets deposited. It could happen. I would say you would have like the same scenario, except it would just be in a reservation format. That makes sense. Pools that open, they'd probably immediately get filled, to be honest, because there'd be, such a reservation, backlog, I would say. So there's a way to do it, but I want to make it fair, if that makes sense. I'm going to use that word again that I don't like, fair, and equitable for everybody. Currently, it's I understand it is a little bit of a challenge to get into pools. Hence the reason we did do the lake, by the way, as a way for people to have something if they miss the pools, right? And there had been some debate, well, how are lakes better? Because, it's a sunk cost. Well, everything's a give and take, as I say, right? Pools can potentially have more benefits. There's drawbacks if you can get into them and so forth. But you still have to claim your tokens, right? That can be a cost, that can be expensive. Or if you buy tokens, still, you have to wait to get your profit back. So with a rollover with zero fees, it does make up, I think, significantly, because you could literally, like I'm doing, roll over like several times a day. So anyway, that's a long answer to a very short question, which is, yes, it's something we're considering, but it has to be done in a way that's fair and equitable. Let me just go through some of the questions. Feel free, by the way, to keep asking some questions in the AMA questions channel. I might be able to get to them. I'm just going to see if there's anything else I'm missing. So yeah, there's a lot of metrics for when pools are open. Obviously, considering the fact that they are buybacks, right? Profits have to be available and in an equitable fashion. So one of the complaints has been, well, I think there should be more pools open for a certain tier more than other tiers. And there's all sorts of, open up, pools for certain tiers and not. All this requires money. I just want to remind everybody, all this requires money. It all boils down to cash, of course, doing it in a way that is, as fair and equitable as possible. Like we try to give notice if it's possible. Ideally, that's what we'd like to do. So there's different around it, right? Do we want to open pools on a Wednesday morning versus a Friday afternoon? Just as an example, like when would more people likely be available? What about opening pools at a different time than we did last time to kind of give more coverage to different people? Like there's all sorts of considerations when it comes to profits or any kind of return is not guaranteed. Never is. Anybody that guarantees anything, you should question it, right? Anywhere in DeFi or outside of DeFi. Because nothing is guaranteed, it's sort of like, well, when it's available, there's other facets that I just mentioned that have to be considered. So that is the reason, kind of like the short and simple answer to, why there's not like a pool scheduled. And by the way, the ideal scenario is we get to the point where pools can be opened almost every day. That's kind of like the perfect world. And, as we mature, as XETA matures and becomes more and more profitable, as more of the utility is used and all this other kind of stuff, as we grow together, that actually will be more and more of a possibility. Someone wants to know if we could open a pool just for James' project. I'm going to write that down as an idea. Not against that at all. I think that'd be a wonderful idea. Now, remember, James' project itself cannot actually own a pool, just so you know. Nonprofits are not allowed to engage in crypto or equities or anything like that. They're not allowed, as far as I'm aware of. So that'd have to be like a manual opening of a pool, or not even really a pool. It'd have to be almost like a set aside. Can't even be in a zone. It'd have to be like a behind the scenes kind of thing. So I'll write it down. It's a good idea, but it'd have to be done a little differently, and then have to be just donate on an ongoing basis. But yeah, thanks for the idea. I will write that down. Write that down for sure. So some people are asking, is Gaxis a long-term partnership? Yes. No, we're not looking at any other hedge funds. Somebody's asking a question about NFTs. I think you want to direct that over to the Move. Something about what their airdrop. That's a uncharted question. So I would encourage you to please ask the Move that question. So I would appreciate that. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question. I just need to do that. Sorry, just going through these again. I think I've covered most of these. Please go ahead and ask more. So yeah, there's others have asked if is there any other collaborations with Thor? Yes, there are. There's something actually very specifically I'm talking with them about that I'm revisiting here very soon, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. I don't want to say what it is, but it's something that would benefit both parties, as always. The OTC thing, I just want to continue, guys, to encourage you guys to use that. If you're not looking to get into the lake, right? If you're not compounding, if you're not willing to wait for pools to open, if you're looking to even just sell a little bit for your fees, list some tokens, right? I mean, actually, be honest with you, you can list all your tokens and pull them down anytime you want. And somebody can buy fractions. So for example, if you list 100 tokens, someone can come and buy one, right? So just give it a try. Give it a try. Let them sit for 1 to 2 days. I promise you, I think you'll be surprised by it. Then you're going to notice, wait a minute, that got sold and I didn't even have to, I know some people who are like, gosh, I don't want to sell, but I kind of have to for my fees. Well, here's a way around that, right? Going through the other question. Oh, I do have a brief update. So I really, really, really appreciate the patience inside the LP tickets, and I really apologize that that's been taking so long. I do have a solution finally. I got it just the other night. So if you were in the LP tickets, expect an update. I'm actually going to try to post it shortly after this AMA. I'm going to record so I got two things on my agenda, just so you know. Agenda item 1, and it's not in any particular order, but agenda item 1 is Lake video, and agenda item 2 is give an update to the LP tickets with the solution for the next step, and then move everybody into that next step, and then go obviously into step 3, hopefully very soon. So just to let you know, that's on my agenda item for today. Let's see. I'm trying to look for more questions. I think there's just one more that is interesting here. So somebody's asking, is there a way for people with large deposits to directly deposit into the pool instead of using that money to build zone? Can we make a countdown bit for pooling? Are you talking about pools or lakes? For pool, yeah, for pool, this is what you would do when you see a pool opening up. Let's say a pool's opened and it's a 15% tier, right? You got 50 zones or whatever, right? I want to put 30 grand in, just to use your example. What you'd have to do is when the pool is open, buy $30,000 worth of Zeta tokens, take those tokens in your wallet and go buy the blocks. That's how you would do it. That's not financial advice. I'm just literally answering your question. If you wanted to put any kind of amount in, that's what you do. Now, you might do this, which is what you might do. You might also consider using the OTC to do that. Although, again, I'm not giving advice. This is just something you could consider. That is a big benefit to this particular model. I've noticed people, I don't want to say hacking the system, but kind of, they understand how the system works. Let me put it that way. When a pool opens, I've noticed some people are putting a large buy order in, taking those tokens and depositing them in. And when they put the buy order in, it pushes the token price up. So they're actually getting more value when they deposit. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do that, but I am noticing people doing that. It's actually, it's interesting because what they're doing is they're increasing their own value when they go in. So they're, large buy order, they get the tokens. Those tokens are now worth more. They go right into the pool. Boom. They got actually more value than if they had just held the tokens. So it's interesting that people are doing that. You could use the OTC, but that is a potential benefit, not advice, but that is what some people are doing for the HFT. But for the lakes, now, if you're asking a question about the lakes, for example, that same scenario would be very different because the lakes are unclaimed rewards. So the only way to put a large order into the lakes would be literally to build more zones. You have to build more zones, gather more unclaimed rewards, and roll them over. And by the way, accelerators are coming in January. Now, I've never wanted accelerators more since when the lake opened, because it would increase my emissions. Yes, it decreases my zone's life a bit, but it would increase my rewards and I could roll over more. Right. So I've actually never wanted accelerators more since when the lake opened. So anyway, that would be an additional way you could potentially, deposit more into the lake, as if when we get accelerators out, that should be this month, you could purchase those with your Zeta tokens and increase your emissions and roll over more. And that's with 0 claim fees as well. Let's see. No plans to roll over into OTC. I give as much notice as we can for the pools. But yeah, we'll try to give more notice. Actually, I am working on, not going to say what it is, I'm working on an idea that could give people significant notice. That more to come on that, actually. It's a pretty slick idea, actually. It's just one of those things to continue adding to the list of stuff, right? We're finalizing what we want the first quarter of 2023 to look like this week as a team internally. We're literally open the book, look at all these projects we want to build. There's literally a dozen or more things on that list right now. So it's okay, where to allocate manpower and resources, because there's only so much manpower and only so much resources to allocate. This is a great, sort of 80-20 practice. As a matter of fact, there is a book on my desk called Organize Tomorrow Today. If you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. It's by Dr. Jason Selk and Tom Barcho. And what they talk about is how, and this is just, this is a little bit of a personal thing, but they talk about how your brain works and how to organize the things and the tasks you want to get done in a way that works with your brain, not against it. Because what we do is we often make lists of things, and we make a list of 50 things. Well, there's no way you're going to get 50 things done. It's just not going to happen. I would actually boil this book down to the 80-20 rule again, like most things in life. But consider reading that book. It's a pretty short read. If you're looking for a book, especially in the new year, to read, I think you would benefit a lot from it. I've benefited from it. I don't put it into practice as much as I should, but I benefited a lot from it. I read it a couple of years ago, and it's really changed the way I organize tasks and what I want to get done tomorrow, and what's that one thing versus, other things that really don't need to get done. They explain in the book, by the way, why phone numbers are in sets of 3, why social security numbers are in sets of 3. This is in the United States, by the way. There's a reason for that, actually, and they explain why in the book. It's actually very interesting the way the pathways to your brain work in organizing tasks. I bring that up because we plan to really organize what the first quarter of 2023 is going to look like. And it's a list. It's a beast of a list. So we want to make sure that the things that are 80-20 of 80-20 get done, and just certain goals we want to hit as a team and as a company. I bring that up because, that may or may not be included in there. Any other questions? We'll hang around here for just another minute. We're almost going on an hour. I like to keep these an hour or less, actually. That would be ideally the goal. 1 hour or less. I'm just going to scroll up. I might have missed something in the interim. There's been some questions back when it was November. Blue chip you should be receiving your liquidation for blue chip today. That should be in your wallet by the end of today. And I will again, so the agenda is Lake video as well as update the LP tickets. I have a solution for the current step in the LP tickets. And just to remind you, if you're in the LP tickets, it's getting your liquidity out of the old contract. That's going to be the next step. And then the step after that is to determine the best solution to make up for the loss. We have a couple of different ideas for that. So that will be presented to you as well. We've discussed a compounding function, Crypto Hulk, but nothing for sure yet. Appreciate the question, though. A lot of people have asked that. And I think I did also mention there's an infographic being worked on for the lake, how the lakes work and their airdrop and all that as well. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything else here. We're not prepared to open up Prime to anybody who has not purchased in the pre-sale at this point. Main reason is I want to kind of protect I don't want to use the word integrity, but sanctity, is that the right word? That might be the right word. Of that group, people who got in early. I don't have any updates on the old XETA tokens yet. We'll have an update on that hopefully after the LP situation is sorted out. Excuse me. But voice chat for Prime Cross Blitz is a challenge because it significantly increases the moderation that has to take place. Text is always something that anybody can go in and see a history of. Voice is not. So I want to be very careful with voice chats. Not that you guys would do anything wrong, but I know you won't. I just, as a group as a whole, I just want to make sure that things are moderated and kept professional and diplomatic and all that. And it just would require moderators being in there. But great question. What I'd like to do is kind of do it like in a time where me and or Gavin are available. I know Gavin did one once. I wasn't able to jump in there, but Do it when a member of the team is actually available. Good question. Still, yeah, another question about Zeta Black. Don't want to discuss that just right now yet. I think that's it. Unless anybody has any more questions, I don't see anything that I've missed since the last AMA. There was some questions about what if my zones become, I lose my zones or don't pay my fees. Like, guys, the best suggestion I have is to make sure you're paid up to date. But like, honestly, I know that's like a dumb answer, but it's kind of like the most straightforward one. Please just make sure you're paid up to date if you want to maintain your lake and all that kind of stuff. You do have a grace period. You'll notice you have 28 days and your rewards still accrue. You don't want to continue running, late. That's my suggestion for you in terms of maintaining your lake and your pools and all that. And of course, to also answer the question, when you roll over into the lake or you deposit into the pools, you are locking in that value and that tier at that moment. If you move up, and I have a wallet where I did this, I deposited into a lower one, the pool closed, it initialized, I moved up. I still see that pool. I just can't go back and redeposit into that old tier again. Okay. And by the way, we're discussing potentially allowing higher tiers to see lower tiers. There's nothing on that yet, though. We are planning something for 100. Actually, I don't want to say what it is. But yes, there actually is something really cool that we're talking about for 100 potentially. As far as 25, yeah, I mean, there's stuff that we have planned for different tiers. I just don't want to give too much away right now. Good question, though. I want to make sure it's equitable. Just, as you guys know, we'd always said we were discussing stuff for like 10 and 25. Originally, it was 25, 50, 75. People kept saying, well, gosh, you have something for 10. And I agreed. I think that made sense. So it kind of was like, well, listen, I understand that moving up in the tiers is not easy or, inexpensive. I recognize that. That's why the HFT was opened to further tiers and to further zone counts for that reason. A lower tier, but guys, I mean, look, I've gone heavy into the 10% tier, right? Because again, it's that seizing the opportunity when it's in front of you, seizing something when it's in front of your face, when you have the value that you can lock in at that time. I mean, my gosh, I mean, even if it didn't hit 10% a month, if it was slightly below that, I mean, tell me where else you can get that kind of return. That's not guaranteed, but potentially up to that return. I don't know anywhere else you could get that, even in a year in most cases, not let alone a month, right? So anyway, I'm going to hang around for literally 2 more minutes. Any other questions, please let me know. And again, I'm going to give a promotion to Ray's Dune Analytics. Please check that out if you have not. There is a lot of cool data on here. That will be under the stats channel. We're looking at 115K in total OTC volume, 117 transactions. Just a lot of interesting stuff. If you want to look at what emissions look like, circulation, who has access to which tiers, also just revenue, buying for selling pressure, all sorts of other brilliant guy. So please check out his Dune Analytics as well. Keep an eye out for the lake video coming. I'm going to get this AMA potentially uploaded probably tonight into tomorrow at some point. I'll do the lake video after this. I have enough on Client Zeta to do the video, so I'll be doing the video after this. I'll be doing an update for the LP tickets. And we'll also be getting a bot coded for the OTC inside the Discord, so you guys will get notified throughout the day when a new deal has been posted. A new selling listing, I should say, has been posted. And yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on, but there's definitely more to come. And I hope this did answer a lot of your questions. I don't think I got to all of them, but a pretty good chunk of them. Want to give a big shout out again to Nyla coming on from Thorfi. We got more coming with them as a partnership. Please check them out in their Discord as well. I believe they're going to begin publishing our announcements inside of their partners channel. Probably in the next day or so, and then we'll continue working with them to get a bot coded for our Discord for the OTC notifications. And go ahead and continue asking questions in the AMA channel. And when we have another AMA, probably in another week or two, give or take, if there's enough questions. We don't do the AMAs regularly only because there has to be enough questions to make it worthwhile. I know a lot of projects do AMAs literally every single week, and that's fine. But what ends up happening is a lot of the same questions get asked, and it just doesn't really serve to benefit, I think, the knowledge base moving forward. So I only want to do it when there is enough questions. So be sure that if you have questions, you get them submitted. And if there's enough questions and or enough updates, we'll go ahead and have another AMA. I would expect in another week or two. Until next time, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. This will be uploaded probably within the next day. Until then, God bless. Take care. See you later.